I've decided to do a piece to camera for you of an example final day presentation. I think people are getting a little bit nervous about the how, and don't worry about the how. I've sent you the script, the trainer session plan. What we want you to focus on is the why. We want to see you, not a repetition of Neil or repetition of me. We want to see you. So I'm going to do a quick video here for you of what a typical presentation could or should look like. Now, I'm going to decide to do my written partner group exercise within the objectives. That's because I've chosen as my module to present mirroring and matching, which doesn't really have a written partner group aspect to it. But for you guys, the modules that I've given you, whether it's ACT, whether it's mental health evaluation exercise, whether it's the feelings wheel or whatever, it does have an element of written partner group exercise attached to that module. I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, just ask me. Right, so I might also be doing this time out to explain what I'm doing and cut some of the time. All right, so right, so how many of you have found your mental well-being has been impacted by recent events, whether that's in your professional or personal life? Got a few hands going up there. How many of you have noticed your colleagues' mental well-being has been impacted? I can say in the last 6 months. Have you noticed that? And how many of you haven't been impacted by recent events? Neither have your colleagues, and you don't really know what I'm referring to. Okay. Okay, for those of you that may not have been impacted in any way whatsoever, well, okay, just bear with me. We're going to guide you through a program today where if it's not relevant for you now, it might be relevant for you in the future, but it might also, there might be some skills here that might be relevant to help your friends and colleagues. So I hope you can absolutely engage with this content. My name is Duncan Risco, and I'm Chief of Creativity, Happiness, Innovation and International Wellbeing Insights. Now, we've been up and running for the last 20 years. We are a consultancy. We're a wellbeing consultancy, and we are the research and consultancy arm of the non-profit Stress Management Society. My background's mental health. I used to be a documentary filmmaker. I'm not a clinician, but in my old life, I used to be a documentary filmmaker. My speciality was mental health, training videos and mental health documentaries. I got a bit bored of doing that job because I felt I was just recording a problem instead of helping people. So I came to join International Wellbeing Insights 8 and a bit years ago because I want to enact positive behavioural change. There's an awful lot that we endure in our professional lives, which is completely unnecessary, including threats to our mental health or periods of mental ill health. This program is Mental Health Champions, and this is part of the Philips community. We've put a community together, 250 of you, to practically support your peers within Philips. Now, this role is not a clinical role, it's a supportive role, and we'll be visiting the do's and don'ts over the course of these 4 sessions. How many of you can think about 100 other things that you should be doing rather than sat here with me right now? Yep. And how many of you may be getting a little worried about why you're here? Maybe the things stacking up in your inbox. Okay. And how many of you not worried about things stacking up in your inbox at all? Okay. All right. So for those of you that are worried about things stacking up and getting away from you outside of this room, try and just be here now. It's 2 hours today, but the 2 hours you put in here today will help you, and it will also help your colleagues within Philips. You're also adding to a really pioneering community within Philips, and that is entirely up to you. So I have to thank you for your time, but there is a return on investment of your time. So it's short-term pain for long-term maximum gain. So thank you for that. In order to get the best out of our time together, I'm going to tell you what you've joined. So you have joined not a lecture, but you have joined a workshop. This is a series of workshops where it's interactive. So cameras on, please. Let's see your lovely faces. The content has been written to move on when you participate. Right down there on the bottom is where all the resources will be forever at www.stress.org.uk. P handbooks or FANDbooks, Philips handbooks. You'll find that there, and I've put it in the chat section too. Now, when I ask a question, this is the interactive nature of this course, that it does require an answer. So questions will be asked throughout the session. Please get involved on the mic rather than the chat. This is not my session, it's everyone's session. There will be opportunities to participate. That looks like written work, contribution, discussion, sharing your experience, whatever that means, but we need to hear from you. So feel free to ask questions of me and each other. Share your experience, absolutely. You can disagree as well, that's all right. In fact, I'm going to say, don't believe anything I say until I prove it. If you don't understand anything, even if it's a word you don't understand, just ask me to explain it in a different way. If you don't understand, it's my fault, not your fault. You can tell me to slow down, speed up, whatever you need at any time. Now, we have different kinds of internet connections and different devices. So if I could just ask you to put something in the chat section just to make sure that we're all connected nicely today. And while you're doing that, I'm going to ask you very nicely to get on board with some ground rules with me. So I'm going to tell you how I'm going to behave. So when I see you in this space, I will be on time. I will also, while I am here, I will be here now. You are the most important things I need to do for the next 2 hours together. So I have limited my distractions, and I'm going to invite you to do the same. It's really hard to concentrate and be here now if you've got TVs or radios or things going off in the background. So please put your tech off or on silent. Now, I'm going to ask you to participate. What you put into this session is ultimately what you get out. It's what you get out now. It's what your colleagues right here get out. It's also the program, but also Philips as a whole. So participation, please. Now, I'm going to ask you to show up correctly. So be honest with yourself, first of all, and with each other. But if people are being honest, that's their experience. So let's respect what they have to say. I suppose I'm asking you to keep an open mind and remain non-judgmental while you're here. In order to ensure that people are being honest and they feel secure in that, let's have a spirit of forgiveness. Let's get the thoughts out there. This is an experiment. It's a thought experiment. If we get it wrong, it's all right. That's where we do it here. That's we can make mistakes and get it right. It's exciting to challenge ideas, but let's remain confidential, please. Let's keep everything we say in this room within this room. I will use I statements a lot, usually to protect other people's privacy. If I think it's meaningful to share the experience from another group, I will say I, but I'm not talking about myself. But there is a caveat, an exception to confidentiality, and that is safeguarding. The safeguarding that your safety is my #1 priority. That if anything comes up, particularly with the nature of mental health, which we are talking about, that I will follow up very, very discreetly with that person and make sure they are, first of all, safe, make sure that they have got support. If they happen, I will ensure that they get it, and also I will close the loop and make sure that they are okay. That's my promise to you. Any other ground rules you can add at any other time throughout this session, and you can also pull me up if you think I'm not abiding by my own ground rules. Okay, I hope that makes sense. It does. Good. So let's make this about you. I've done enough talking. So I think it's a good idea to get acquainted. I would like to know, well, what's in it for you? Why have you turned up here today? I know why I'm here, but why have you turned up here? I also don't know who you are. So I think we could do a round of introductions. I am going to put you into breakout rooms now with a partner. And this section is called What's in it for me? I would like to know your name and your location. We have champions from all the way in Wellington to the west coast of America. I would also like to know your role. What do you do here at Philips? And also your objective. What do you want out this session? So I'm going to put you into breakout rooms. I'd like you to discuss with your partner and jot down some notes, and we'll bring you back to share with the rest of the group. This is what's in it for me. Now, before I put you into groups, I'm just going to make sure that everyone's on the same page. What do you need to ask me before I put you into the breakout rooms? Yep. How long have you got? Did everyone hear the question? How long have you got? I will give you 4 minutes to do this exercise. Is that okay? Good. 4 minutes. Any more for any more? Any questions? What questions do you need to ask me? Okay. Right, so I'm going to put you to breakout rooms, 4 minutes, and then I'll bring you back here. Okay, time out. We're going to pretend I've put them in the breakout rooms, which probably will work. But I've decided to do my written partner group in objectives again because I've chosen I've taken the module that doesn't have a written partner group exercise. I'll show you later. When you do yours, probably do your written partner group with the module. So if it's ACT, there is definitely a written partner group exercise attached to that. So I've told them they've got 1 minute left. All right, okay, and I've brought them back. Watch this piece of acting now. Okay, we're back in the main room. Okay, so the question was a reminder of what we're doing once we're back here. It's the what's in it for me exercise, the name, location, role, and objective. Now I'm going to call you out as you appear on my screen, and it's random every time you come back. So you are okay, Dave, and off you go. Take notes of the objectives, put them in the chat. Okay. Right, those are your objectives. We shall revisit those at the end of the course and make sure that we've hit them. I'm going to manage expectation now. We will hit most of those, and if I can't at any time, then I absolutely will upload it to stress.org.uk/fanned books, where all the other stuff is. So this is Mental Health Champions, everybody. And do you know what? We do have a framework that this is built on. And the framework is our IDEALS framework, IDALS, IDEALS. And this is practical mental health support within Philips. Now, I stands for identify early indicators of mental ill health. D is develop a personal connection. E is engage in conversation. A is actively encourage, and L is listen with empathy. But we have to ensure your safety, and also we have to put boundaries around what this role is. So your role and the S in IDEALS is to safeguard, signpost, and support. But how do we identify and how do we develop and how do we actively encourage? Particularly around the idea of well-being, which is really quite subjective, isn't it? So I'm going to share our approach to well-being. I want you to imagine a bridge, and this particular day on Tower Bridge, Transport for London called a strike, and they put all the double-decker buses on top of the bridge. And they've also put the taxis, and there's been escape at London Zoo also, and they are eating all the drivers. Extinction Rebellion and anti-vaxxers are protesting on top of the bridge. There is no more space. It's packed, it's jam-packed. There's been a tidal surge on the River Thames, and HMS Belfast has washed up on top of the shore, on top of the bridge. And not only that, page 11 of your handbooks, everybody, that there have been capacity issues at all the London airports, and Mayor Khan has landed all the planes on top of the bridge. Now, if we keep adding more and more pressure on top of the bridge, what will happen? Question for you. Correct, madam. It will collapse. But before this bridge collapses, it will give you some warning signs that something is wrong. What will it do? Switched on group this, it will bend and buckle and crack and moan and groan, and people are exactly the same. Every bridge has a load capacity. If you go over the load capacity, it will collapse, and so will you. To prevent this collapse, you have two choices. You can either alleviate the load or reinforce the bridge. Our definition of poor well-being, stress, or excessive pressure is when demand exceeds resources. Now, why do we use the bridge? We use the bridge to enable people to talk about their stresses, strains, their poor mental health, their well-being, and in the third person. It enables them to take away some of that shame and stigma that we sometimes feel and talk about a thing instead of themselves. So, this is a gateway, I suppose, to empathy. And I think empathy gets a bit mixed up between sympathy. Sympathy, as we know, is feelings of pity and sorrow for someone else's misfortune. And empathy, of course, is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. And I think we're all naturally empathetic people, you early adopters of this program. And that, I think that's where the boundaries are going to have to come in. Natural empaths have to have boundaries because they will take on other people's troubles. But this is about communication, and the bridge is a communication tool. But I've got a question for you, which is how many of you have been amazed? How many of you have ever been amazed at how communication can go badly wrong? Yep, I certainly have. I did not mean to say that, but that's what they've understood. And how many of you think that communication is purely verbal? It's not, is it? Now, Professor Marabian has a communication model. He did this study in 1967. And he said that communication is broken up into three elements: body language, tone of voice, and words. Now, how many of you think that we mainly communicate through words? Okay. What about how many of you think it's tone? What about body language? Well, according to Marabian's model, he says the body language is 55% of meaning, a tone of voice is 38, and words are 7. So we have to be really aware of non-verbal communication. It's vital to do that. And particularly when we're showing up as mental health champions, making sure that the scene is right, the setting is right, we are facing the person, we're using non-aggressive body language, that we're using appropriate eye contact. And this is about establishing, I suppose, a connection, isn't it? And this is about rapport. What does rapport mean? Get the answer. Rapport is about building connection, and this is about providing emotional support. So let's have a tool in our toolbox in order to build that rapport. And I'm going to give you a body language, I suppose a language model called mirroring and matching. Who can tell me what mirroring and matching means? Yes, excellent example. Mirroring and matching, exactly that. Listening and reflecting back what you've heard, but also what you see as well, even down to actions, but not copycat. Copycat, people can really pick up on that. So on page 31, we have some scenarios, and these are real life scenarios from your colleagues at Philips. And if you look, I want to think about the three elements of communication: body language, tone, words. And I want you to utilize the mirroring and matching technique. Act like a mirror and reflect back what the speaker is saying and feeling. Example, I've been feeling really low at the moment. Wait until they're finished. So I'm hearing that you've been feeling maybe a little depressed, a little down. Yes, exactly. And so on and so forth. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms to practice this. 3 roles here. You have one, if you look on page 31, you have one role is the speaker, one is the listener, and one is the watcher. Feedback. Send them away, time out, send them away, bring them back. How'd you get on with mirror and matching? Blah, 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 blah. And then introduce the next one. There's another one, pacing and leading. And this is about energy. Who can tell me what pacing and leading means? Excellent. Da, 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 da. Yeah, it is that. Very good. Brilliant. Okay, so we are going to go to page 32 and 33. 32, it will explain what mirror and what pacing and leading is. It's very much like meeting the energy and steering that person to where you want them to go, whether it's up or whether it's down. Now, again, there are 3 roles. Person A, you will be the talker. Person B, the listener. And person C, your feedback. And there is a link for an example video for you as well. Off you pop, and I should bring you back in 10 minutes. 10 minutes comes back. Hello, how do you all get on? Brilliant. Pacing leading. It does feel a bit wonky, doesn't it? Yeah, very good. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, that is the end of the session. And I'm going to put some questions out there now. What do you need to ask me before I end today's session? Direct question. Did everyone hear the question? Okay. Steve-O asked where the toilet is. The toilet is outside and you will be having a break now. Did that answer your question? Very good. Thank you. Any, what questions do you need to ask me? Thank you very much, Andrea. Andrea asked, what if the person detects what you're doing with mirroring and matching? Who would like to answer Andrea's question? Who has an answer? Yeah, you could do that. Good. What else? What else could you do? Yep. Thank you, Martine. Andrea, did that answer your question? Excellent, thank you. There's more stuff in the handbook if you want to read it through, and that link to the video will answer your question too. Right, so that is the end of my presentation. Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you for your effort. I'm going to give you a break now, and we'll come back to do the rest of the ideals framework. My name is Duncan, and that's the end of it. All right, cut. That is the end of the example video. So pretty much like that. We don't have to do the written partner group, like wait for them for 3 minutes to do the written partner group exercise. No, we'll pretend. All right, it's pretend. You know, what we're looking for is your ability to facilitate the exercise rather than the results of the exercise. But I followed the script that you have got on pages 26 and 27. I did another copy on 28 and 29 for those that like to print it out. But I have covered everything, and I'll share my screen with you so you know what I'm looking at. This is the script. So on page 25, I did how many views? I did the name of the workshop and the time return on investment. I did this. I earned the right. I told you who we are and who I am. I did ground rules and objectives. I also did I did all that. I did a written partner group there. So is that the opportunity there? On the net, where we are, I then did the bridge, but I did the ideals framework first, and then I introduced the bridge. Entirely up to you. But I did the bridge, did it pretty quickly, and then I did the given module. I did the theory. How many of you have noticed that communication? I told the story or the case study, which was I told you it was Professor Marabian. We had the exercise and activity, which was both of them, the written partner group, the mirroring and matching, pacing and leading, and then action, how to encourage practical application of knowledge. Really, how could you do this? I then did it in conclusion and feedback, where I fielded questions. I answered a direct question, and I also boing flipped one out to the audience as well. And I took 2 imaginary answers and answered Andrea's question. So that is the example. That's what I want to see. Now you've got the how. Don't worry about the how now. Now let's just practice, get a bit of confidence, and absolutely smash it on Tuesday. A bientôt. Enjoy yourself. It's later than you think.